So, salt acted as a preservative. So, preserving the faith, 6 of the best. First one up is mentor someone. Look at this little guy with his sad eyes. He needs someone to mentor him. You could get alongside this guy. You could help him out. You could take him places that you're going. It doesn't have to be a super intense thing. Just try and include someone else that you're mentoring in the stuff that you do during the day anyway. One of the biggest single predictors of success in someone's life is having a significant other person, a significant older person other than their parents involved in their life. They reckon that about 90% of those involved in the youth justice system had no significant male role model at all. So mentor someone, find someone to raise up in the faith. You could get involved in a Big Brother or Big Sister program, or you could get hold of Phil. He's got his own mentoring gig going on. But however you do it, even if it's just finding some kid down the road, find someone that you're a couple of steps on in the faith from, and mentor them, bring them along. Preserving the faith, number 2, mentor someone else. There's something in all of us that quite likes to help people. You know, we feel good about ourselves if we see ourselves in a strong position and we help someone out, but we're not so good at finding that help for ourselves. So preserving the faith, number 2, is find your own mentor. When you're in youth group, there's always someone around to try to encourage you in the faith, try to help you along. But as you get older, it becomes harder and harder to find people like that. No one's doing that for you. You have to go out of your own way to find someone to mentor you. So find someone whose life you respect, whose lifestyle you admire, whose faith you admire, and learn from them. Follow their life example, hang out with them, try and meet up with them once a fortnight, have coffee, ask them questions, give them permission to ask those difficult questions about your life and about your faith. Be accountable to someone, find your own mentor, a great way to preserve your own faith. And of course that means you are in a better place to be able to mentor someone else as well. Preserving the faith, number 3, preserve kingdom values. This first one's about raising awareness for things. There's so much out there that's just really poor on content, really slogan-driven sound bites of information, and so much of the decisions that are being made about things that go on in our community are being done on the basis of some really bad information. So find out about some social issue or something going on and actually work out what's really going on with that issue. Become literate, become aware, become well educated on that issue, and then find a way of raising the general awareness in your church or in your community about whatever that important issue is. You can write letters to the editor, you can even Facebook about it, you could do some culture jamming, you know, some really good awareness raising stunts. Lock yourself in a cage in Cathedral Square to raise awareness for issues around prison reform or whatever else it might be. There's all sorts of ways that you can go about raising the general level of awareness on an issue so that decisions aren't just being made on the basis of fear-driven slogans or sound bites or blipverts. So preserve kingdom values by raising awareness of an issue. Preserving kingdom values, number 2. Get to know a decision maker. Here's a great picture of Bob. You could get to know any of these Bobs. Take them out for coffee. You could have a Bob once each day on this one. Get to know a decision maker because they're the people that are making decisions that are going to affect all of us. So a good example of this recently was a decision being made about whether or not we would allow more pokie machines in Addington. That's a really serious issue because pokies, we know, tend to transfer money from the poor to the rich, from Māori people to Pākehā, from women to men. They're a real drain on society, and they put the biggest burden on the most marginalised people. So one way you can get involved in preserving kingdom values by saying we don't want that sort of thing in our community would be to write some big placard and wave it outside some building somewhere or on the face of someone. But an even better way to do it would be to get to know one of the people that eventually is going to make a decision about these things. Invite them out for coffee, or just ask if you can talk to them to find out about what their decisions and goals and desires are for the city. The better you get to know a decision maker, the easier it is to have an input into the things that are going on. I sat down with a guy who was about to vote on whether or not he would allow pokies into Addington. And sitting down over a cup of coffee with him, because we already knew each other, made it a lot easier to say, you know, you got invited along to the Raceway for dinner, and if you don't vote against this now, it'll look like you got bought out. You're going to look really bad if you don't vote against this. His intention was not to vote, but because we had a cup of coffee in a non-confrontational way and we chatted about it, and I described the way I saw it in a way that really fitted in with what he wanted to avoid, looking bad, he ended up voting against it. So preserve kingdom values, get to know a decision maker. Preserving the faith, number 5, preserving worth. Set your watch to beep every hour. Every time the watch beeps, it's a meditative reminder that the person that you are speaking to right now, that is where God is. God is in their eyes. Whoever's eyes you're looking into, whenever your watch beeps, reminds you that you are talking to God. I mean, God's not literally in their eyes. That'd be kind of weird. He'd probably try and get out. But metaphorically, God is looking out of their eyes as you speak to them. This is a really good reminder, particularly if you're in conflict with someone, or if there's someone you don't like, or someone that you find really boring, or someone that's just stopped you on the street, and your watch beeps and it reminds you that this is where God is. This is a really good way to remind yourself of the value that God has for all people. So preserve the faith, preserve the value for others, set your watch to beep every hour. And the last one, preserving worth, preserving your own worth. Pile up stones. In the Old Testament, whenever anything really significant happens, when God brought them into the land or across the river, they would build a pile of stones to remind them that in this place God did something really significant in their lives, and it reminded them that God was involved and cared passionately about who they were. There's all sorts of different ways you could do this. You could build a pile of rocks in your driveway, or a friend of mine has built a little letterbox that he puts mementos in. Every time God is involved in his life in a really significant way, he finds something that represents that time well, whether it's a keychain or a feather, and he puts it in his little memento letterbox. And from time to time he looks over those things, particularly if he's feeling down or depressed. He looks over those things, and it preserves in his eyes the faith, and that it reminds him of the value that God has for him. For me, there was one really significant time in my life that involved dandelions. There's no point going into it now, but it involved dandelions, and for me, piling up stones is to remind, my way of doing that is to put a picture of a dandelion on my phone or somewhere I can see it from time to time, and it reminds me of the time when God spoke really clearly into my life. So 6 are the best: preserving the faith like salt, preserving kingdom values, preserving the faith by mentoring someone, preserving values by reminding yourself of the worth of others and the worth of yourself in God's eyes.